What I'm going to do here is we're going to put a primer coat. Because our pillow is dark, our yellow won't really come out very nicely. So I'm going to apply a coat of what I'm going to call primer. And you're going to see that I'm going to leave edges so that we end up having, I'll pull towards the center. Always pull the direction you want your petal to go. Not that it's going to make much difference, but it gets you used to doing what you're going to do when you put your top coats on. So what I'm referring to here is the edge that I'm leaving between the petals. So you'll see that I'm not coming right over and base coating to the petal. And I want it to be nice and fairly strong around the outer edges. And it doesn't have to be equally solid everywhere, because that's going to give our petals more depth if they're not exactly even. Okay? So there's my primer coat. I'll do to the rest of the petals and all of the flowers. Now, I've painted all my petals in the white, leaving a little space along there, and we can strengthen that back up with some black after if we feel we need to. We're going to start with the cadmium yellow, and I'm going to come from the outer edges inwards, and I'm just scratching it inwards. I am picking up a fair bit of paint. I'm using my lunar blender. Scratch inwards. If it doesn't cover solid at the bottom, it doesn't matter. Wipe my brush. I'm going to take a little bit of my bright yellow and come from the bottom upwards. Some of this you'll notice, some not so much. Not a panic. Then I'm going to pick up my antique gold, and I won't scratch up as far as I did before. You can come and strengthen more of that after when it's dry if you'd like. Wipe that off, and now I wiped my brush off on a towel. I'm not washing it off. Now I'm going to pick up white and come to the tips and just lightly, I'm using a fair bit of paint, I don't mean lightly with paint, but I apply my paint at the tip and just lightly scratch as I lift off. So it's going to lift off at different spots. I don't want it to be a straight line where it stops down there. Nice and loosely. Areas we might have a bit more, I can turn my brush to the side and scratch a little down, and that's good. As it dries, we'll come back with our antique gold and strengthen up. So we're going to repeat this for all of our petals. So I've added my white, and now I'm going to pick up antique gold. I'm even picking up a little bit of the cadmium yellow on my brush. Just nice and softly, scratching a little bit upwards. We're not looking to add tons of color. It just depends on how much, and you might not even have to do this. It just depends on how much your white toned down and took out any of the yellow, or too much of the yellow you wanted to keep. So it's up to you as to how much of this, or even if you do this. But I'm just coming back through with just a little bit. Kind of double load the brush and just streak up with a bit of that. That's enough. I'm only looking to strengthen up the yellow a bit. So I'll choose if I'm doing that to the other flowers as well. So I've dried my pillow, and I'm going to take and have my brush a little damp. I'm not looking for wet, a lunar blender. I'm going to side load into some So Soft Black And I'm just going to softly scratch down here where I might want, and just loose like this, where I might want to strengthen up where we've left that bit of a shadow under here. I don't want it to be tons, and I'm not looking to have a solid line. So it's just loosely coming up a bit. And do you see how that strengthens up where I've left that line? I'll put a little bit coming in the middle here so that that one petal doesn't stand out quite so much. And we'll come through on all the petals, and I'll do that. Okay, so we'll do that wherever, and you may not even need it. You may have left enough of that dark in between our petals, so you can just leave that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a regular flat shader. I can take a 1/2 inch or 3/8, it won't matter. And I'm going to take some white So Soft, and I'm going to side load. Now, you can even do it with your lunar blender if you want. And I'm going to come in here just along the edge in a few places, and I'll strengthen up that white on the edge, down the side. So it'll be a little here, strengthen up a little here. You can chisel it down a little bit if you like. Give it a little bit of drama. And then the dark is here on this petal, so I will strengthen up the white coming up there. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and I'll do it on my bud and all of the other petals. And if I've gone off the edge like I did there, I can just come along here and just strengthen that a bit. And that's good, just like that. So we'll do that to all our petals. I've mixed a little white into my lavender, and I'm going to side load a little 1/4 inch or a number 6 or 8 flat, and I'm just going to come in and float on a few of the tips of our petals just to highlight them and pop them up a little bit. You don't have to do all of them. And we're going to be coming in with, once we get what we want in this section, I'm going to come in with my stylus, and I'm going to add in the little clusters. So I got a cluster that's tucked under there. So we'll add these dots in the little clusters. There could be a cluster that's under there, so we'll add some dots there. Not every one we've highlighted. See, he's tucked in behind. And I'll just come through and I'll add my little dots. I'll add a few more highlights up to the top of that, but you can highlight as much as you'd like in these. All right, so that's our next step. I've base coated my centers in a coat of, now I'm on the larger flowers for the pillow, but in a coat of the green mix, the highlight green mix. And I'm going to double load my brush. I'm taking a 3/8 flat, and I'm double loading it with a coat. Now first I'm going to, I didn't mention that and I didn't do it, I'm going to put on a wet coat of my highlight green. I'm double loading my flat brush with my highlight green and some black. And I'm going to come in a little bit, and I'm going to create a hollow. And I'm going to blend it so it becomes a dirty gray oval in the center, kind of like a button almost. And then I'm going to take my stylus And I'm going to mix a little white in with my highlight green. So a little bit of white with the highlight green, so it's a softer green. And I'll just come around on that outer rim, and I'm just going to dot lighter green dots. So we're just going to come around out onto that. The back section's not going to have anywhere near as much. And they can come off the edge as well. It doesn't matter. So we dot those around. So you can see that darker dent in the middle. Then I'm going to take my liner and I'm going to thin down soft black. I'm going to softly thin down the black in the So Soft Black. That's what I'm trying to say, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to come out and pull out fine, tiny, little lines. Now they're basically coming from random in this edge. So we pull these all the way around. And we want them to be relatively fine. There's quite a few of them. And you never want them to start and stop at the same place. We want some to be shorter, longer. That's the important thing. And they're going to overlap each other. That's good as well. Reloading as you need. And we'll go through and add these nice little wispy lines coming from our centers. And then I'm going to take my stylus and this is important, that these little dots, that's why these little lines that we said we want them, see how I have some in here and out here. And of course I'm not necessarily doing one on the end of each one of them, but they'll end up looking like they are. It'll look like there's a little line basically leading to each one of them. And we'll go through and we'll add these little tiny dots of black pollen, as we'll call them, on the ends of each one of these little pieces here. So this just really softens our flower and makes it look pretty lacy, and I like the look that it does to it. And it actually picks up our dark that's in behind from that we've left or created with a little bit more of the black earlier. So we've got these nice little dots in here, and that just finishes off our flower. So we're going to move over, and I'm probably going to get my hand in this. I would recommend that you're going to dry it. And I'm going to pick up, and now I can use my 1/2-inch lunar blender, which I'm going to, as soon as I find it. I was just saying how well I had these organized. Surprise. So I can use my lunar blender. I can use my flat shader the same way that I'm doing with our other leaves that we've done. So I'm going to take and I'm going to do that press and slide that we did. So I don't get as nice a crisp line as I would like to get at the tip with this lunar blender, because I've abused it quite a bit, but it's that press and slide, lift it up. I think I'm going to switch to my flat. So I'll switch to my 1/2-inch flat with this. and I will do that press and slide. See how that's going to let me get to a nice flat chisel up at the end. And once you've done those, you might want to go back with a little bit of our highlight mix that we've done. Now on our little bud up here, when I add my leaves, and I'll do press and slide, I will press and slide, and that's able to be done because it's a relatively flat fabric. If you're on something that's a little bit heavier, you'll definitely have to use your lunar blender. But I'm also going to come up, why I want to show this one is I'm going to come up off the end. You've got a little tiny line up here. We're going to bring that little piece off of the end of the bud. So we've got that part to the bud, and I'm again going to add a little bit of my highlight green onto the edge of this. So it's just a little of that highlight green. I'll come up to those leaves behind it too. And that's how we're going to create our bud on the end of these flowers.